We need hungrier talent who can meet higher targets, Brian explained while sliding the termination papers across the polished conference table. The company is moving in a new direction. My name's Darren McCabe. I'm 46 years old and spent 9 years as a senior account executive at Triana Corp in Kansas City, Missouri. I dedicated nearly a decade to building a client portfolio that accounted for almost 40% of the company's revenue. No shortcuts, just long days, constant travel, and relationships built on trust. I smiled, thanked him for the opportunity, and walked out without argument. Brian Ellsworth had arrived 6 months earlier as our new vice president of sales, brought in by the CEO to reinvigorate the team. He wore custom suits, spoke in tired motivational phrases, and never once joined me on a client call. 3 weeks after starting, he implemented a new commission structure that slashed my earnings by 20%, despite my consistently strong numbers. The signs were there. My desk had been moved to a corner during office renovations. My name disappeared from meeting invites. Yesterday, I noticed IT servicing my computer while I was at lunch. Small things, not worth mentioning individually, but enough to know something was coming. I packed 9 years into a single cardboard box, family photos, a coffee mug my daughter had painted, and a folder of client contact info I'd kept separate from the company database. Just habit, really. Need help with that? Asked Valerie from accounting. She looked genuinely confused. Are you changing offices? Something like that, I replied, not wanting to make a scene. On the elevator ride down, I stood next to Everett Stanton, Arsu. He nodded without really seeing me, too focused on his phone. He had no idea what Brian had just done, or what it would mean for quarterly projections. But he would soon enough. Walking to my car, I didn't feel anger. Just a strange sense of clarity, like waking up from a long, comfortable dream to find the house was never really yours to begin with. I drove home in silence. No calls. No radio. Just thinking about tomorrow. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my driveway. Travis Fricks, my biggest client. The annual contract renewal was next week. He'd texted about dinner reservations for when he'd be in town. He didn't know yet. Nobody did. I set the phone on the kitchen counter without answering and looked out the window. 9 years of client relationships, all built on my word and my reliability. Brian hadn't just fired an employee today. He'd cut the only line connecting Trevant to millions in revenue, and he had no idea. I joined Trevant back when it was still called Midwestern Financial Services, before the rebranding and the fancy downtown office. Everett hired me himself, straight from a competitor where I'd been hitting targets but getting passed over for promotion. I want someone who knows this market, he said. Someone clients trust. For 7 years, he was right to trust me. I built our client base from regional businesses to national accounts. Extended our contracts from 1-year terms to 3- and 5-year deals. Brought in Lockhart Manufacturing when they left our biggest competitor. Added the Henderson Group when nobody thought we had a chance. My wife Rebecca used to joke that I was married to my clients. Thursday night dinner with the Johnsons again? She'd ask, already knowing the answer. The kids got used to me missing ball games and recitals. Dad's working became their normal. I promised it would be worth it someday. 3 promotions, 2 office expansions, and 1 recession later, Trevant had grown from a $4 million operation to a $30 million enterprise, with my accounts responsible for about $12 million of that. Not that anyone had calculated the exact percentage until Brian arrived. The first red flag appeared during a quarterly review meeting, 3 months after he took over sales. Your client acquisition rate has flatlined, he said, pointing to a chart that showed I'd only added 2 new accounts that quarter. Because I'm focused on expanding existing relationships, I explained. The Lockhart contract just doubled. The future is in new business, Brian insisted. We need hunters, not farmers. A week later, my executive assistant Julia was reassigned. The following month, my travel requests required additional approval. My expense reports came back with questions. Small things, death by 1,000 cuts. I started hearing whispers about fresh talent being interviewed. Young MBAs with aggressive pitches and no industry experience. Brian called them disruptors. Last month he hired Alicia Winters, 29, from a tech startup. During her first week, she was assigned to join me on a call with Travis Hicks. No explanation. No proper introduction. Just show her the ropes. Travis noticed. After the call, he texted me, "Who's the new girl? Are you training your replacement?" I laughed it off. Just expanding the team. But driving home that night, I felt something shift in my gut. The kind of certainty that comes from years of reading boardrooms and client faces. Something wasn't right. I should have trusted that feeling sooner. I placed my cardboard box on the kitchen counter and poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon. The house was empty. Rebecca was at her sister's place in Denver for the week, helping with a new baby. Probably for the best. I needed the quiet. I pulled out my personal phone and scrolled through my contacts. 9 years of relationships. Over 200 clients, vendors, and industry connections. People who trusted me. People who'd signed with Trevant because of me, not the corporate marketing, not the flashy office. My work phone, now sitting disabled in the box, contained only the official correspondence. The dinner invitations, the golf outings, the personal numbers of COs, those were all on my personal device. Information I'd accumulated by being someone people wanted to work with. I sipped my drink and felt a strange calm settle over me. No panic. No desperation about mortgage payments or health insurance. Just a clear understanding of what had happened and what would happen next. The bourbon burned going down. 9 years of 60-hour weeks. Of missed family dinners and little league games. 9 years of building something I thought was mine, only to discover it wasn't. I opened my laptop and pulled up my employment contract. The non-compete clause was there, but limited in scope. 1 year, and only applicable if I left voluntarily. Being terminated changed things. There was no legal barrier to taking my clients elsewhere. My phone buzzed again. Travis. Dinner reservation confirmed for Thursday. Looking forward to discussing the renewal. I stared at the message. Travis Hicks represented $1.7 million in annual business for Trevant. His company, Lockhart Manufacturing, had been with me for 6 years, and 3 years at my previous firm. Almost a decade of trust. And he wasn't alone. The Henderson Group, Westfield Properties, Carlton Industries. Together, they accounted for another $1.5 million. All of them had contract renewals coming up in the next 30 days. All of them dealt exclusively through me. I set my glass down and made a decision. I wouldn't call anyone tonight. Wouldn't send angry emails. Wouldn't make threats. I'd sleep on it, wake up clear-headed, and then make exactly 3 phone calls. Not to vent or complain. Just to inform my closest clients that I was no longer with Trevant, effective immediately. The rest would happen on its own. Not just fired. Deliberately sacrificed as part of a larger plan I was never meant to know about. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was that I'd almost accepted it. I'd been ready to walk away quietly, convinced it was just the end of a cycle. But now I saw it for what it really was. A calculated removal not due to failure, but because my success made me a liability in their future plans. The next morning, I met with Michael Grantley in person. His office was smaller than Everett's but felt more real, less curated, more grounded. He introduced me to the team, gave me a rundown of their current top accounts, and handed me a list of prospects he hoped I could bring in. "You're not just here to fill a seat," he said. "You're here to lead. We've been needing someone with real relationships, someone people trust. The floor is yours." It felt surreal. After years of being taken for granted, someone was finally seeing me for what I'd always been. By the end of the week, 8 clients had officially signed on with Grantley and Company. Another 5 were in contract negotiations. At home, Rebecca returned from Denver with stories of her sister's new baby and a quiet question in her eyes she didn't ask aloud. I told her everything. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't shielding her from the stress. She listened without interrupting, then took my hand and said, "I'm proud of you." A week later, Everett emailed again. Just one line, "We underestimated you." I didn't respond. He didn't deserve a reply. Trevant's board announced Brian's resignation that Friday. To pursue new opportunities, The press release said, "The industry knew better." By Monday, the same recruiters who once cold-called me with half-hearted offers were reaching out with genuine interest. I ignored most of them. Grantley had already offered me everything I needed: a platform, freedom, and respect. But more importantly, I had regained something I'd almost lost: belief in my own worth, independent of any company logo. The clients hadn't followed a brand. They'd followed me. And now that I was finally in the driver's seat, I knew exactly where I was going.